No way. That can't be true. And Jesus says, think about it. When someone who has a lot puts in a lot, you know they still have a lot left over. But when someone who has almost nothing puts in everything, that means that she gave everything, while the other person gave much less. Now you need to know that this is part of a passage in the Gospels in which Jesus has already told the young man who had many riches that he had to sell everything if he wanted to inherit eternal life, and he did the math in his head and left. And Jesus sets a very high standard. There's no question about it. But the reality here is that he's pointing out that we value things differently. And in a society where money is the only thing that matters, she is poor. But in a society where commitment matters, she is rich. We can argue all day long about whether Jesus is being fair. But here's the reality. Every person who serves in our military makes the same commitment that the widow did. They walk into an enlistment center, sign a contract, and that contract implicitly says, I will put you in front of a bullet if I want to, and I will take it. They are literally putting their lives out there. Now, fortunately, forgive me, most do not face that. But if you join the armed services, you're agreeing to pay the widow's price, aren't you? You're agreeing to pay the widow's price. Even those who survive combat frequently bring back losses of limbs, of lives. Even if you never see combat and you only served in the military for a while, you give up your personal liberty, the right to get up when you want, to go to work where you want, to go to bed when you want. These people sign themselves away to preserve our democracy. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, those with much money ostentatiously contribute with the all but explicit expectation of getting something in return. While unknown and nameless young men and women sign their names to enlistment papers every day, politicians go on bended knee ask for money in return for favors. Nameless soldiers and sailors sacrifice years, limbs, and lives for a democracy, while the powerful parlay their money into laws and influences to keep them rich and powerful. Do you not see an irony at work here? What makes this tragedy a moral farce to me is that those who lavish their money on politicians say that they're doing it to preserve American greatness. In fact, they can prove it. I am rich. I am great. America is a great place because of me. And I'm here to stand on my soapbox to say they are wrong. They are wrong. Wealth and power are not the evidence of greatness, either of a person or of a nation. They are the evidence of something else, which I will call grandeur. And grandeur is to greatness as pyrite is to gold, sparkle without substance. Greatness is something else. And to illustrate that, I found a fabulous poem of which I've been fond for years. Walt Whitman's Song of the Broad Axe has this beautiful passage about greatness. Where is the great city? The great city stands, the place where the great city stands is not the place of stretched wharves, docks, manufacturers' deposits of produce, nor the place of the tallest or costliest buildings, or shops selling goods from the rest of the earth, nor the place of the best libraries and schools, nor the place where money is plenteous, nor the place of the most numerous population. No, where the city stands with the brawniest breed of orators and bards, where the city stands that is beloved by these and loves them in return and understands them, where no monuments exist to heroes but in the common words and deeds, where thrift is in its place and prudence is in its place, where men and women think lightly of the laws, where the slave ceases and the master of the slave ceases, where the population rise at once against the never-ending audacity of elected persons. Let that sink in. Where outside authority enters always after the precedence of inside authority, where the citizen is always the head and ideal, and president, mayor, governor, and whatnot are agents for our pay, where speculations on the soul are encouraged, where women walk in public processions in the streets the same as the men, where they enter the public assembly and take their places the same as the men, where the city of the faithfulest friends stands, where the city of the healthiest fathers stands. There would be a few ragged huts where the city of the best-bodied mothers stands. There the great city stands. Now, Whitman wrote that in the latter part of the 19th century, but he still sounds like a prophet, doesn't he? Because we still hear the irony of the difference. The tall buildings are grand, the splendors to the eye are grand, the wealth sparkles everywhere, but these are not great. Because greatness cannot be bought or sold, held, owned, controlled, built, or managed. Like a Hebrew prophet, Whitman endures because his words disturb us with the fact we already know, that this is not the way things should be. And they should be better than this. And why are they not? And then, friends, the light of judgment falls on all of us. Because guess what? We're as charmed by grandeur and pyrite as anyone else. We are as taken in by the sparkle and the charm. We are not ourselves rich and powerful, but how many of us have bought a ticket and hoped that the lottery would make us one? It's curious. Why do we humans choose grandeur over greatness? Well, if I had that answer, Jesus would not want my advice. But at this moment in our history, the question of why grandeur goes unchallenged is the really important one. Why is it so prominent that we've even forgotten to ask about greatness? Well, maybe it's because we've been dazzled so much by all the talk, by all the charm, by all the wealth being wafted in front of us. But still, there were times when, as recorded by de Tocqueville when he was here in the 1830s, by Whitman in his poetry, by Lincoln at Gettysburg, by Emma Lazarus at the statue in the harbor, by Langston Hughes in his books, when we believed America should be great, not just grand. Now, I'm not so believed that we can cure the desire for wealth or power, but I am naive enough to think we can remember what the difference is between grandeur and greatness. For example, I have a little bit of hope today because despite all the millions lavished on the election, no one got what they expected. I think perhaps the relentless din and spin may have actually spoiled it for them, like milk left on the counter a little too long. Perhaps grandeur loses its shine when it becomes grandiose. Perhaps it happens when those who condemn the culture of entitlement sit within an enclave of entitlement themselves. I don't know. But if we want to restore the true idea of greatness, we have to embody that quote from Martin Luther King I started with a few minutes ago. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest shall be your servant. That's the new definition of greatness. It means that everyone can be great because everyone can serve. Now I'm going to turn politician for 5 minutes. We can do that in this country if we had universal national service. Yes, I do mean the military, but I'm also thinking civilian service. If being an American meant that everyone, and I do mean everyone, gave 2 years to their country, I believe it might do something to instill a sense of responsibility along with entitlement, ownership, not just citizenship, common cause as well as individual right. of belonging as well as desiring. It would instill in us a taste for greatness as well as grandeur. We need to learn what Jesus and Martin Luther King and others have taught us, that sacrifice is the path to greatness. Not necessarily of our lives, but of a gift that truly costs and cannot be repaid, that is not an investment, that is truly a gift. When people lament the loss of community and remember back to a time when we really had neighborhoods and people joined things, maybe this little bit of information would help to understand why it's different now. In the year 1950, up to 10% of the American population had served in the military. Today, less than 1% has. And when we speak of the so-called greatest generation, we mean those who came back from the theaters of war and got involved in their communities. Why? Because having fought for it, they wanted to make it better for themselves and their neighbors. They had already spent time defeating the dangers of tyranny, and now they were interested in creating the glories of democracy. But what if 100% of Americans served their country? What if everyone gave 2 years of their lives? It doesn't have to be when you're 18, maybe a year here or a year there, maybe a summer or a few weekends over time. It could be in the military, it could be in the Peace Corps, it could be in Vista, it could be in a hospital or a prison or a school or a national park or a police station or a playground or even the Department of Motor Vehicles. What if we all had to sit behind the desks that we resent so much? What if the sons and daughters of the powerful not only got to go to Harvard, but had to sweep a few streets now and then, and perhaps work under the sons and daughters of truckers and maids and apple pickers, as well as being given footsteps and boosts up into the seats of power? What if we all had to give and didn't expect anything back except a country? I think it would change us. I think it would change us for the better. You know, young Mormon men and women, they go off on a missionary journey for 1 or 2 years. They live very, very poor lives. They live in dormitories, not just to keep them good, but because it's hard to live. And they come back with a deep sense of ownership, not only of their faith, but of themselves. Might that do the same for us as a country? If we all had to pitch in, if we couldn't outsource it, if we couldn't purchase it, if we couldn't turn it into money, if we actually had to do it,